the betrayal, the lies from the Conservative Party at every election since 2010 on legal immigration are just astonishing. And those people hate your party and they're not going to vote for it. And I have to say, I don't blame them.
And if Reform stand in your seat, it's more likely to go Labour. You're going to lose a Eurosceptic from Parliament and replace them with
Do you know what?
a Corbynista.
I got rid of Mrs May with the Brexit Party. I stood aside for Boris to help a massive majority. What are they going to do back for me?
Welcome to Never Mind the Ballots election countdown. There is 36 days to go, and joining us today is a man that's shaking up the election already. It's Nigel Farage. Also today we have our political correspondent Sophia Slay and former Tory leader Ian Duncan Smith. More from you two in a moment. But Nigel, why aren't you standing?
6 weeks. I had a plan. Actually, I'll let you in a secret. I was going to launch tomorrow, the 30th.
Really?
I had a venue booked. I had it all ready to go. But the problem is, you can't win in a constituency, or it's very difficult to win without data. And it's even harder to win when you're Nigel Farage, because the other side will cheat, and there'll be third-party outside influencers. And I needed a really good run at this, and 6 weeks wasn't enough. And I thought, well, rather than being stuck for 6 weeks in a constituency, why not travel around the country and actually not just support Reform candidates, but try and get a proper debate going? Because thus far, it is the dullest election campaign in history. I mean, it's ghastly.
Well, you're certainly trying to do your bit. So you've fallen out with the BBC, you fell out with Trevor Phillips, who's next on your hit?
I don't agree. I think I had a huge victory over the BBC.
Yeah.
They showed their outright bias by cutting off my speech.
Well, they apologised pretty quick, right?
Well, I fought them for 5 days last year over the debanking stuff, and in the end, they humiliatingly had to climb down. And as for the Trevor Phillips stuff, well, isn't it funny? There was Trevor, outraged at what I'd said. Well, he was suspended from the Labour Party for making the very same comments 4 years earlier.
Is that your plan? You're obviously good mates with old Donald Trump, who's pretty good at kind of hacking television and just by sort of starting little fires, making the media go a bit crazy.
Well, actually,
that stuff. Is that your plan? You're going to try and do that, aren't you?
The truth is, Harry, what I'm doing is talking about things that everybody else knows but is too afraid to talk about. And honestly, I thought those local election candidates winning in Burnley, in Bradford, in Leeds, coming out of polling stations, big mobs of people, not a single woman, by the way, to be seen anywhere, cheering Allahu Akbar or we're coming to get you. I found that very sinister.
You really think that you'll be able to, just by touring the country on a bus, presumably, and causing trouble, that actually going to change things? Surely you've got to be on the pitch to... you've got to be on the pitch to make actual change.
Oh, I've heard that argument for 25 years, but I think you'll find that actually with a number of...
It hasn't stopped you trying, has it?
Well, I think I've been rather successful, haven't I? I mean, when I first started campaigning for Britain to leave the EU, I mean, that was considered to be complete loony land. We achieved it.
So what is this really about? Is this about, helping Reform or helping your mate Richard Tice, or is it about destroying the Tory party?
Oh, no, they're doing that to themselves. I wouldn't worry about that. They don't need any help from us whatsoever. They now stand for nothing. They serve no purpose at all. They're split completely down the middle. Really, what Reform's about is a 6-year plan to completely reshape the centre-right.
So this is about the 2030 election rather than this one?
Very much so.
Are you going to stand in that one?
Well, I'll be getting on a bit by then, but who knows?
Well, we know.
Who knows?
Keir Starmer's 61 and you're in
who knows?
Similar age, aren't you?
But that's what it's all about. And, Richard has done an amazing job. Tice has kept the party going. It's going into this election. It is going to get millions of votes.
We keep hearing reports of a bit of a rift between you two.
Oh, no.
A nest of singing birds, are you?
That's because you are a journalist and you're always looking for splits.
Your besties.
There are
you
no
can
splits.
BFF.
Listen, if there were splits...
Hang on here, we'll bring you in a sec. I can see you waiting.
If there were splits, you'd know about it.
Do you reckon Trump could ever endorse Reform? That would liven the election up, wouldn't
it? What Trump did, of course, was he was able to hijack the Conservative Party in America. I'd love to have had a crack at that here in this country, but of course, there's no open primary in this country. The Conservative Party several times said they wouldn't even have me as a member. And it's why it's getting anything to really change in Britain is really, really hard.
So, but it feels from that a layman's perspective as myself, it looks like you're going to let Richard Tice do the legwork on this one.
I'm doing the legwork.
Get the 4 million votes.
No.
Get the 4 million votes and no seats. And you'll sweep back in after the election under a Keir Starmer government, presumably, which you're happy with, right? You can put your head on the pillow.
I'm not happy with either of them.
Yeah, but all you're doing is helping Keir Starmer win, right?
No. That's wrong. I tell you what, that vote that's gone to Reform is predominantly a red wall vote.
Yeah.
They're former Labour voters. UKIP and the Brexit Party were the gateway drug through to voting for Boris Johnson's party in 2019. That group of voters aren't going back to the Conservatives. If reform stopped tomorrow, very few of those people would vote Conservative.
So you wait for the Tories to get a tonking, Labour come in, you sweep back in, try and unite the right with a sort of withered Tory party and what's remains of reform together. Is that the plan?
The millions of votes Reform is going to get, and it'll be a UKIP-style vote, but I think probably bigger than that by the time election day comes. I can feel a bit of momentum building within the party, out on the streets. In terms of winning seats, I think we can win a few, not many, because that's a system that we're having to live with. But I do think there has to be this realignment of the right. And in a sense, there was in 2019 of the voters.
Well, that's when you pulled out, though, isn't it?
To allow the vote to unite.
Do you regret that?
No.
Given what's happened?
I honestly think if I'd gone through with that campaign, rubbished the deal, I think the Liberal Democrats would have won 50 or 60 seats. They may well have been in coalition with Corbyn as Premier. No, it was the right thing to do at the time.
Now, you've challenged Rishi Sunak to a debate.
Yeah.
And he has said no. He said he respects you. That's the first time I think I've ever heard a Tory leader say they respect Nigel Farage.
I mean, if I'm becoming respectable, we're all in trouble.
Do you think that was a sort of, not a fig leaf, an olive branch?
Well, 10 years ago, Nick Clegg challenged me to a debate about membership of the European Union. I wasn't sitting in Parliament or anything like that. I was in a European Parliament, fine. But I would say on the Channel boat crisis, or emergency as I see it, it was me that raised this issue 4 years ago. I was going out.
You were just on your fishing trips, weren't you, with an iPhone?
No, it was a bit more than that. Although there was
some fishing involved, right?
Well, there was fishing involved when I was involved in a rescue, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely, that's true. And I've raised this issue. I made the predictions. I've been proved right. The Rwanda plan isn't going to work. He knows it isn't going to work. And that's why we've got a July the 4th election. Those planes were not going to Rwanda. He feared that would lead to a big surge in the Reform vote. That's why we got this election.
So he's not going to debate you, but you are here today with Ian Duncan-Smith, a Tory, an old ally of yours from the great Eurosceptic call.
Ian, people like Ian I regard as friends of mine, but they're a very small minority in their own parliamentary party. Not in the membership of the Conservative Party, and not in Conservative voters, but in their own party. They're completely outnumbered by the Social Democrat One Nationers.
Ian, would you like to see Nigel Farage back under the Tory fold one day?
Well, I don't know whether Nigel wants to do that, but all I know is that if Labour get elected, we get closer to Europe and may even end up in Europe. So in a way, you could argue that Reform will achieve something which they say they don't want. And that's always the big problem about whether you target a party or you target a policy. Truth is, we did come together to a degree to do the referendum and to get the whole thing sorted. A lot more to do, no question at all about that, to make changes that bring Britain back into line with the global economy rather than just with Europe. But we've done a huge amount in the meantime. I mean, these things don't get done overnight, but there are huge issues that Brexit can deliver for us, like the trade deals, etc., which we're getting on and doing at the moment. My biggest problem, though, right now is China, and we are in deep trouble over that, let me tell you.
We'll discuss China in a moment, but he's got a point there, hasn't he? Ian's got a point.
No.
You're going to, Keir Starmer, Mr. People's Vote, Mr. Second Referendum, Mr. Wrap himself in the EU flag. He's saying he's going to renegotiate Britain's deal with the EU. Which way do you think that's going to go?
Everyone's got to renegotiate Britain's deal with the EU. That was part of the leaving terms. That whole thing is up for a renegotiation. Had the Conservatives believed in Brexit, which they didn't,
I think that's unfair to a man that was campaignning for breakfast.
I didn't.
Breakfast? I haven't had my breakfast. But
I'm not talking about the old Maastricht rebel. Of course I'm not. Ian's got some very good form on this. The party itself was dragged very reluctantly into a Brexit position because that was not the centre of gravity of the parliamentary party. Here's the problem. Starmer would find it very difficult to take us back towards the single market, etc., if the Conservatives had taken us away from it. But from everything, from fishing to financial services, basically we haven't done a darn thing over the course of the last 5 years. We haven't deregulated, we haven't moved away, and it is an absolute tragedy that it's now so easy for a Labour government to put us closer.
Nigel's right, though, isn't it? You wrote that great report about all the red tape that could be torn up, and it was torn up, the report was torn up, not the red tape. So,
the Tigger report that I produced was going right the way through. We talked to industry about what you need. There have been some big changes made. And honestly, Nigel, there are. Not absolutely everything, that's quite right. But there has been a whole process of freeing up more pensions money to be able to invest into UK.
But have the
Those
government done
changes
enough
aren't being made.
to deliver Brexit?
But no, there's more to be done. But the fact is, the government has done a significant amount. Is it always and ever going to be enough? Probably not. The truth is, though, we are detaching in every way, bit by bit, away from the clutches
And
of
you
the
fear
European
Keir Starmer
Union.
will go the other way?
But Keir Starmer is definitely going to go the other way. This is the man that wanted the second referendum. I mean, in what way does a leopard change its spots? It does not.
No,
he wanted us back inside the European Union.
But the truth, of course, and it gets back to Harry's question about the reform voters, the truth of all of this is the issue that completely transformed British politics was Tony Blair opening up the door to unlimited immigration from very poor former communist countries. And that changed everything. It led to the rise of UKIP. It forced the Conservatives against their will to promise a referendum. And actually, the betrayal, the lies from the Conservative Party at every election since 2010 on legal immigration are just astonishing. And those people hate your party and they're not going to vote for it. And I have to say,
Ian,
I don't blame them.
Ian, what do you reckon? What do you say to that?
The whole idea is to get legal and illegal migration down, to get rid of illegal migration. Absolutely. The priority is to get legal migration down. The problem has always been Treasury and others like the idea of migration because it raises...
To hell with the Treasury. You're the elected people.
But the key point is, Nigel, the key thing is you will not get that if reform destroy the
No. I'm sorry. We've had tens of thousands a year. The 2010 manifesto, the 2015 manifesto, the 2017 manifesto, and then 2019, we're going to honour the Brexit vote. Net migration is 750,000 a year. I'm sorry. This is betrayal, and that's how I feel about it.
I understand that, but I just... Well, my point is, and it's very simple...
Don't tell me Labour will be worse, please.
We're not going to agree about this. My point is right now, if your party reform end up standing in all the seats, they will end up delivering exactly what they don't want.
Just, gents, we've got to call it. We've got to call time there.
We won't agree about it,
but
we won't.
But just you are allies. You are
We
old
are,
buddies.
and we should be on the same party together. On China, on everything.
Then, Ian, what's your message to Nigel for the fact that you're in a marginal seat? You've got a big fight on your hands to keep your seat, and if reforms stand in your seat, it's more likely to go Labour. You're going to lose a Eurosceptic from Parliament and replace them with.
Do you know what?
A Corbynista.
I got rid of Mrs May with the Brexit Party. I stood aside for Boris to help a massive majority. What are they going to do back for me?
What would you like?
What are they going to do back for me?
Peerage?
No. I've turned all that rubbish down in the past. Don't worry.
What about Sir Nigel Farage?
No. I'm not asking for anything other than I've done them some huge favours over the years as a party. Give me something back. We might have a conversation.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining Never Mind the Ballots.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you on this campaign trail if the first 4 days or 5 days have anything to go by. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Well, Nigel Farage there on fighting form, and if I'm not incorrect, I think he just asked the Tory party to make him an offer he can't refuse. Sophia, did you get that?
Yeah, I think Nigel Farage was on full Nigel Farage form and may have committed some news there at the end. He sort of said, what are they going to do for me? And, he has set the debate for the last 10, 15 years. We'd have no Brexit without him. We'd not be having the immigration debate we're having now. And he's sort of saying, what can you do for me now to the Tory party?
Ian Duncan-Smith, what could they do for Nigel Farage? He said no to a peerage. He doesn't want a knighthood. But clearly, what does he want? He wants a seat at the table?
Well, I don't really know quite why that little outburst came, but the reality is, and I think the point was, every time you make this point to them, they don't answer it, which is all you're intent on is destruction. You're not intent on achieving anything, and all you'll get is a Labour Party that will come in and go in exactly the opposite direction to where Reform won. So that sort of never gets countered by any other argument because there is no logic to it.
Isn't the point they're saying is that, given what's happened in the last 5 years, that actually it doesn't really matter if it's Keir Starmer because immigration's out of control and Brexit hasn't been delivered properly already?
Yeah, but you can always go to the extremes. This is not the case that Brexit hasn't been delivered. Huge amounts of stuff has happened in the city. They've been much freer now. There's more to be done on that. And there's huge amount of changes coming already. I mean, all those trade deals we could never have done at all because we detached ourselves from it. We actually got the medicines out during the course of the lockdown because we were outside of the European Union. All these things were delivered. Is there more to do? Of course there is, but it takes a while to move from 30, 40 years of being locked into an organisation to then being out of it and then to develop and feel your way into how you can change and make the most of that. And all of that is happening. It's a kind of work in progress, but we have achieved significant things. There is more to be done.
Sophia, how much is a pain in the, I'm going to say arse, for Rishi is Farage zigzagging across the country as he's promising to on his little bus? Is that more painful for him than him standing in, say, I don't know, Great Yarmouth or somewhere?
I think it would be a massive pain in the neck for Rishi Sunak if Nigel Farage had have stood this election. He's not running, but he's agitating from the sidelines big time.
Doing quite well at it as well, yeah.
He's haunting him wherever he goes. And I think, had he been running, I think Rishi Sunak, the Tory party are worried about reform. I think they'd be even more worried about reform had he been running, because I think reform, Nigel did liken reform to UKIP. I remember the 2015 election. UKIP were much more recognised on the doorstep. When I was knocking on doors, they were a name. People knew them. I don't get that same vibe when it comes to reform.
How bad are they in your seat? How worried are you?
Oh, well, I understand there's a candidate standing, but I'll be honest with you. We do a lot of
British insult I've ever heard there.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think he's discovered policy a few minutes ago. But the main point is that we do a lot of campaigning there, and I rather like that. Don't get the sense that there is. And I'm not being complacent. I just don't get that sense. I think there's a lot of potential for people not to vote is the bigger problem, I think, for the Conservative Party.
Well, let's have a quick look at those polls now. A new YouGov poll this morning shows Labour extending their lead, but a JLL Partners poll has the lead tightening. So something for everyone there, really. It looks like there's a bit of a tightening since the policy blitz launched by the Conservatives on national service, on pensioners. JL Partners saying that squeeze is coming from people coming back to the Tories who are older voters. YouGov, though, will be sending a chill down the spine of CCHQ, given they're the ones that, I think, from memory, correctly predicted Theresa May's collapse in 2017. Now, on to our villain of the day. And Ian Duncan-Smith, is it true that a Chinese henchman follows you around?
Yeah, around the world, yeah.
Around the world?
Yeah.
So you've upset China. You've obviously been a vocal critic of the Beijing communist state. Yeah. And they sanctioned you. Yeah. You stand up in the Commons day in, day out, punching them, quite rightly in many people's views, including possibly myself. What's going on?
Well, I'm sanctioned, but not just myself is sanctioned, my whole family is sanctioned. There are others, there are up to 7 of us in Parliament that are sanctioned for this, because we discovered the genocide, a genuine genocide taking place in Xinjiang in China, where they are literally putting people into slave labour, they are sterilising the women, and they're getting the kids to be taught to become Han Chinese, not Uyghur Muslims. So we campaigned on that, and that's why we got sanctioned. So I and others have wolf warriors. They're low-level...
warriors?
They're called wolf. They're low-level operatives.
Are they sort of junior...
Yeah, they're kind of guys that just are meant to imitate you and go around the world saying, you've changed your views. They say, I get emails from various politicians around the world saying, I don't understand, why have you shifted your views back to being very much in favour of President Xi? And I go back, it's not me, that's somebody else, So.
Astonishing. Are the security services taking that seriously? Are they helping you in any way?
Security services are okay. I think sometimes the Foreign Office could be better about knowing what happens. For example, we've always asked the question about if we go to a place that has an extradition treaty with China or Hong Kong, what's the greater risk of having what's called a red notice? In other words, you get arrested pending extradition. So we have to dodge if we go anywhere not to be in a country. And Italy had an agreement until quite recently, I understand, with Hong Kong. So you have to watch where you go. But they've not really been that great about advice.
And in your, obviously we hear a lot about the threat of, sort of hostile states interfering in our election process. Do you have any concerns that they might try and mess with you in this election?
Oh, almost certain. I take the view, as we all do, that they follow us on where we go. They trail what we do, what we say. We have had interventions. One of my colleagues, Tim Lawton, who's not standing again, was held at the airport at Djibouti because the Chinese pretty much run that country as far as I can make out, and they just said, don't let him in. And they stopped him at the airport. So this sort of stuff goes on the whole time. It will up, and it's already upping its tempo. But being tracked by them, I always assume my telephone's being listened into every day, so we stick it in a cupboard.
Say hello to your wolf warrior too. I'm sure he's watching this.
Yeah, I say, well, welcome to my diary for the day, but then you've already read it, so what's the point in telling him?
Astonishing. How does it, just on a human level, how does it feel to be sort of violated in that way?
I think what I do is more important than what happens to me. So
They
it's the same for
won't
everybody
put you
else.
off.
So, you know, I mean, there are people out there that are suffering. I mean, there's a report in the paper today, I think it's in the Sun, says that they've upped their game in executing loads of dissidents and people. You know, I've made the point that we are facing the biggest challenge since the end of the Cold War. We've got China as part of what I call the new axis of totalitarian states, China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran. They work very much in lockstep with Iran. The attacks in Gaza, organised by Iran, were hugely about also taking pressure off Russia in Ukraine, because America would have to switch its attention. All this sort of stuff about arming Russia. We are right in the middle of a war. And the trouble is, we are losing that war, and we don't even know that we're in it.
Rishi has promised to get 2.5 by the end
That's
of
the right
decade.
decision.
Quick enough?
Well, we've got to get it done. The fact that the commitment is there, I'm astonished that Labour, frankly, haven't said yes to that as well.
Yeah.
They must face up to the fact this is a war right now, and we are in it. Maybe we're not firing guns, etc., but they are in Ukraine and they are in the Middle East.
And just quickly before we move on from the very serious and heavy topic, you're wearing a guard's tie, if I'm not wrong there. You're a former military man. What do you think of the national service thing?
I love the idea. I think it's what we should have been doing for years. We have our communities at the moment are often broken apart by income, by religious nature, by location. We need to get people back together again in this country. We used to have a sense of Britishness.
How's it gone down on the doorstep?
I think it's going down really well. I mean, young were debating this before we made this announcement, and the old all said, this is what we want to do. Maybe the baby boom generation hadn't really thought about it too much, but I have to tell you, either ends of that bookshelf, there is definitely serious debate. And the idea, I've said endlessly, you talk to the old guys that used to be in national service, I did the army, you learn so much bringing yourselves together with others you might never meet. You might not live in the same area, you may not have the same income, you may not have the same religion. We divide ourselves too much. In the UK, other countries do it, we should do it now. Bringing them back together, working in community groups and charities in the army, it's a brilliant idea. Ian
Duncan Smith, thanks for coming on Never Mind the Ballots. Before you go, though, we're going to have our moments of the day. Sophia, it's been I don't know where to start. I think we have to start with Ed Davey. What happened?
He went, was it paddleboarding?
Well, he didn't go paddleboarding. That was the problem. I think we can see it. There he is. Yeah. No. So is this a deliberate strategy to just try and desperately get any attention, or is he just a clown?
This is peak Lib Dem. They do put their leaders through the most embarrassing stunts. Hey, look, you know, it can only be good for them. People have said to me quite a lot recently, I don't even know who the leader of the Lib Dems is. So it can only be good for him. He's in all the papers this morning. He's put a smile on our faces.
I mean, he has. I mean, he's a good sport. I'm not sure it's going to do him a huge amount of good. Now, also talking to people feeling a little bit uncomfortable and out of their place, a video emerged overnight of private jet fan Rishi Sunak taking the Riviera Express, the Penzance sleeper, all the way down to Cornwall. And I think he looks like he's going on his national service. He looks like he's got the call up. I'm pretty sure, I do wonder whether that's the first time he's ever been on a train, but he's looking at it confused. He's having it explained. He's laughing, saying, no, wait, you want me to sleep on here? No, good for him. You know, he's been flying around the nation in a PJ and a shopper for a while, but I have been on the Riviera Express, and I bloody love it. And then finally, one more from me. What do we think about, I'm going to get both of your opinions on this. Do you have a hoodie that costs 500 quid, either of you?
I don't have a hoodie. No, I don't have a hoodie.
You were the pioneer of Hugger hoodie, though.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't have to take the hoodie off them. I'm not a hoodie. I have other stuff, but I don't wear a hoodie.
So here we have Keir Starmer, as the Sun revealed this morning in a world exclusive, the most important story yet of the election. Keir Starmer there campaigning in a 500 quid Sandro hoodie. Sophia, what do you think? What's your fashion tip?
Well, he looks, you know, he looks great for a 60, 61-year-old.
It's quite modish, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the problem with this is...
It's French.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say... You can say that. Is Labour can't pick on Rishi Sunak for having expensive things.
It's true.
Those in glass
Gucci
houses.
loafers. He literally said, well, they've been saying all campaign he's richer than the king, but most people can't afford a 500 quid hoodie, not least myself. Ian, thank you for coming. Good luck. Come again and see us soon. Don't let the Wolfman get you down. Sphere, you're a star. Nigel Farage, he's gone somewhere, but he's committed news, so he's always welcome back. And you're always welcome back too. Subscribe, Sun YouTube channel now, youtube.com/Sun Election. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching.